Number 15. The Haunting. YouTuber Zach Clark published footage of his puppy Zoe's alleged ghost sighting in December of 2011. The footage shows the alert pup staring at something in the distance. His tail wags. He backs out of the doorway. Clark asks Zoe what he's growling at, and the pup approaches his owner's feet to find comfort against whatever dark presence is lurking. "What is it, Zoe?" Clark asks again. The dog returns to the room, staring alertly at nothing at all. Clark goes on to say that no one else is in the house, just the owner and his dog. "There's literally nothing here," Clark says. "The only explanation is it's a ghost." He does a short tour of the house to show the viewer that there's honestly nobody home. Zoe keeps returning to a corner of the dining room, staring at something, plainly shaken with fear. Zoe even backs away from the ghost. The dog starts barking and growling at the paranormal visitor, invisible to the eyes of Zoe's owner. The pup senses something, seemingly in thin air. For nearly 4 minutes, Zoe keeps returning to this spot, appearing alert, barking, growling, but nothing makes itself known to the viewer or Clark. "I put the whole shot on this video," Clark writes. "It's a little long, but I wanted you to see that this is one constant shot, no edits, no gimmicks, no tricks." So what did the dog see? As Clark mentioned, a ghost does seem the most likely explanation. Number 14. The Sadist. No one has to do a deep dive to know that cats and mice have a history, but Kira Storm describes how her cat in particular has an even more dark history with mice than anyone could imagine. The first time she caught a mouse, we weren't really sure what to do, Kira Storm explains. A relative of hers had suggested to her to hold the mouse underwater while praising the cat. This way the cat would know the mouse was long gone. While this does seem a little strange, it didn't go the way she had planned. The next mouse the cat caught was brought over to her water bowl and held underwater. She then waited for the owner's husband to notice so she could receive his praise. The next one was brought to the owner after the cat had done the same thing. Although the mice infestation had thinned out, the cat is still looking for praise of the darkest kind. She now does the same thing with her toys. The owner informs us that this actually isn't odd. "I eventually found out that this is a pretty normal cat thing," she writes. Still a little unsettling to say the least. Number 13. The Ghost Whisperer. Kelsey F46A6B5969 tells a story about her family dog and what she witnessed in a stranger's home. Kelsey and her family had gone to visit a family friend. They were staying at their house, but the family had cats who didn't mesh well with the canine variety. So they put the dog upstairs in a bedroom. All's quiet on the western front, right? Not so much. One night after dinner, everyone was sitting in the kitchen when the dog started barking like mad. This is a dog that rarely ever barked. The OP describes the angst in her pet. It was loud and sounded so desperate. When I went to check on her, she was pacing around the room. She stopped and looked at me, and then stared at something in the corner of the room. What could the dog have been staring at? There was nothing there, or at least the dog's owner didn't see anything or anyone. Kelsey went to close the door, but the dog instantly went into panic mode and started barking again. Kelsey thought her pet was just being bizarre, maybe uncomfortable in the strange house, but later found that the dog may have had a legitimate reason to go bonkers. The family then told us how the original owner's young daughter had passed, and that used to be her bedroom. Kelsey writes, "They had sometimes heard footsteps and laughing on the stairs going up there. Completely chilling." Number 12. The Boxer. Cats are sneaky, secretive, and suspicious. And Tom Kehoe, a former print/broadcast journalist, manager, and editor, writes about his Lynx Point Siamese cat, which he'd named after a famous Chinese boxer, was one of the most psychotic cats to ever exist. Kehoe writes that his dear pet spent his life on a rampage, one so dark that it left him and all others who came into contact with him scarred for life. One of our neighbors called him the devil beast from hell because he terrorized her dogs. Kehoe said, according to his owner, if you pet this devil beast 1 second longer than he desired, you were in for it. You might as well stick your hand into the whirling blades of a Cuisinart. Kehoe writes, the creepiness doesn't end there. Actually, it's only just begun. Demon Cat would leave a mouse for his owner next to his briefcase quite often. It's not an uncommon behavior, but the way this cat did it was a bit unnerving. So here's the weird thing, Kehoe writes. He's always posed the mice. The cat would place the mice on their backs, legs pointing in the air, eyes closed. And strangest of all, their tails were always missing. The story gets even more sinister. Kehoe passed his briefcase one morning, and the demon cat was just sitting on a chair, minding his own business. After making coffee, Kehoe returned to discover a dreadful scene. What I saw left me speechless, he said. There was a whole family of mice by my briefcase. They were all posed on their backs, they were all missing their tails, and they were arranged in order, side by side, from longest to shortest, Daddy Mouse, Mama Mouse, and then the little nippers. The cat just sat there staring, as if to say, do you see what I did for you? If that doesn't make your skin crawl, I don't know what will. Number 11. Anger issues. Redditor Scarlet writes about her psycho Pomeranian who, according to her, has some anger issues. She says her dog loves to attack his stuffed animals. Scarlet seems to think that her pet is taking the anger he has for his owners out on these stuffed animals. When he's mad at one of us, usually because we are leaving him behind when we go somewhere, he will get one of his toys and beat the crap out of it, she writes. The implication is basically, this is what I would do to you if I were a larger dog. So is the dog being a bit cruel? What's the problem? Well, many dogs can be aggressive and somewhat threatening to their toys. Scarlett believes her Pomeranian is a little too aggressive and that his behavior isn't normal. I think it's safe to say we're all glad he's not a bigger dog then. Number 10. The angry Chihuahua. Chihuahuas are too small to be feared, right? Not this demon Chihuahua. Yes, he's small, but his harsh snarl and red glowing eyes are as menacing as they come. Can you imagine waking up to a face like that? The glare, the teeth, the tongue, all of this brought together in a bite-sized package. One that's ready to attack at any second. Number 9. The Inspector. As so many of these scary pet stories have illustrated, animals behave strangely, but none more so than the pet dog of a Redditor with the username Old Rocking Chair. The writer's dog used to sleep indoors, but he would bark like crazy if left outside. His owners would leash him inside downstairs, but the dog would whine when he was lonely. When the owner had had enough, he gave in to the dog's whimpers and lugged the pup upstairs to sleep, leash free. The whining stopped, but that's when the freakiness started. Here's the thing, OP writes. Quite literally, every night at 3 a.m., our dog gets up and does an inspection of all the rooms, not before 3 a.m., and not after. The dog inspects the whole house. All the doors are left open, so he has free reign to do as he pleases. When he was a young pup, he had an accident that put the fear in him about jumping from even the most minuscule of heights. Even a height so small as from the bed to the floor would frighten him. But every night, the dog would wake up at 3 a.m. on the dot and roam from room to room, after which he would lay at the foot of his owner's doorway. It's happening every night that we could observe him. OP writes. We started bringing him upstairs early September. I don't know what happens in our house at 3 a.m., but several times, when we do catch him in the act, he looks at the doorway of the room, then stares at the person looking at him, then at the doorway again. What is he seeing there? Only the dog knows. Number 8. The Watcher. A user by the name of 145679RK1 brought his boyfriend home for Thanksgiving and introduced him to a staffy mixed dog, Cody. Cody's owner describes his dog as sweet, playful, and dumb. The dog liked his new boyfriend straight away. The dog's owner explains that his parents' yard isn't fenced in and is backed by woods. When they let the dog outside, they keep him on a lead, but one day, when the owner let him out while his boyfriend was there, Cody shot to the woods before he was stopped by his lead. He was snapping and growling at something near the tree line, but his owner took no notice. He thought Cody had just spotted a squirrel or other small harmless critter. He returned inside, but when he and his boyfriend went to bring the dog back in an hour later, they found him in much the same state of unrest. He's still standing watch, growling at the woods, he writes. I call him and he won't come, but then my boyfriend called him and he bolted back, nuzzled his hand, and stood protectively in front of him and resumed growling towards the woods. So what was that? What could have frightened this dog into such a state of alarm? The OP later explains, an hour or so later we start getting texts from his ex, including pictures of us letting the dog back in. He had sensed this guy was in the woods and went to guard against him, and then went to protect my boyfriend. Cody was so protective of his owner's new boyfriend that he would guard him closely the rest of the week while he slept or took the dog for a walk. They say dogs have a sixth sense. Well, this dog certainly does, and it's for the better. Number 7. The Sixth Sense 2. Dogs aren't the only pets with a sixth sense. Cats know what's up when things aren't what they seem. Canned Cream tells about finding her cat hiding under the covers in her parents' bedroom. Just a weird lump beneath the covers, near the head of the bed. At first, she didn't know what it was, so she went and poked it. The cat growled. She thought the whole thing was bizarre because her cat never growled or burrowed beneath the covers. She peeked under the sheet to see if her pet was doing alright and to let her know that it was just her, but the cat kept hissing and growling, completely and utterly frightened. She was starting to feel a little frightened herself. This behavior was strange coming from her cat. What did the cat know that she didn't? Was somebody in the house? Covering the cat back over, she began her search. She looked in every corner, behind every door, looking for what had frightened her cat so much that she had found refuge beneath a blanket. The verdict: never did find anything, she writes, but the cat refused to leave the safety of the covers until hours later. She's never done that before or since, but to this day, I wonder what my cat saw alone in the empty house that scared her so badly she needed to hide for hours. Number 6. The Scaredy Cats. 2 cats are better than 1, especially when it comes to ghost busting. 369 Damn Fine knows this for a fact. He writes about a time when he was a kid, staying at his grandparents' house, which was nearly a century old and looked haunted. The interior and exterior was quite spooky. The OP writes, one night I was lying in bed watching TV with both my grandparents, cats lying on the bed with me. All of a sudden I hear a creaking noise in the floorboard and the door to the room swung open, slowly and all by itself. Well, that sounds a little spooky. Remember, the house was old, so this was not a huge cause for concern. In fact, the door would open by itself rather often, but this time was different. The door usually opened about halfway, then stopped. The OP explains, but this time the door opened all the way to the point where it smacked into the opposing wall. Then both of the cats, half asleep at this point, jump up simultaneously, and I noticed the hair on their backs rose. Not only did their hair stick up, but they both seemed to be watching something invisible move across the room. Their heads moved in unison to the right, swiveling until they were looking right next to their owner's bed. Then, even more chilling, they started staring at the speaker. Sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Number 5. The Union. Birds of a feather flock together, but S. Patchy 14 says his chickens are flocking too close for his comfort. I think my chickens are unionized, he writes. At random times in the day, one of them will suddenly cluck and the rest will go running into the laying booth, where they will all randomly sit in the corner out of sight. I think they're plotting a revolution in there. Sounds a little too Animal Farm-like to me. You better get out of there, Mr. Jones, or you're going to find yourself on the pointy end of a pitchfork. Number 4. The Obscene Bird. Marvelous Aham Addy is a writer and lifestyle coach who owned a blue-fronted Amazon bird. I got her from a man who called himself a pirate of the Mexican seas and dealer of extinct birds on a summer vacation, Marvelous said. But Marvelous and his family would soon find that the beautiful bird, whom they named Jackie, had a dark and sinister past. The bird learned quickly how to mimic voices, and she'd already known how when Marvelous had bought her. The owner's nephew came on holiday to visit and didn't know the bird could talk. While his uncle went to pick up the boy's mother from the train station, the boy was watching some movies that were not family friendly to say the least. Jackie, the bird, soaked it all in. When Marvelous and his sister arrived home, the bird said, "Get on your knees, baby." Of course, the nephew was mortified. Jackie rattled off a few more things like that before saying, "Late, late show by James Gordon," and that was the end of her reign of terror, at least on this particular day. Number 3. The Paranoid Pit Bull. Pit bulls are frightening enough in general, so imagine when one gets riled up over something imaginary. Shoot the Hostage tells of a time when he was in the kitchen, cleaning or cooking, only to hear his dog, Buddy, start growling like a motorcycle idling outside. The 80-pound pit bull was staring at the basement door, which sat ajar, growling like no one's business. He describes his pit bull in detail. His hackles were fully raised, he has quite the mohawk when they're up, and his body was rigid and shaking. His lips were curled, baring all of his teeth. He was snarling, taking in these big breaths so that he could let out these long, throaty, nasally growls. He was in full attack mode. I have never seen him like this before. Normally, the dog would bark at cats, but though intimidating looking at times, he was a lovable and goofy dog, according to his owner. The owner knew him as this fun-loving pet, so this reaction was unusual. I can't imagine what it would be like to be on the receiving end of a growl like that, his owner said. Of course, his sights turned to the basement. He started wondering what was hiding below. The basement wasn't easily accessible and no one was home, so he did what any sane person would do. He armed himself. He later wrote, "I grabbed a kitchen knife, the biggest and sharpest of course, and started angling my way to see down the steps when I was just about behind Buddy and about 45 degrees to the opening of the door. I finally saw it. Don't worry, it wasn't anything to be afraid of. It was only the old hoodie that he had thrown on the top step to be taken downstairs when he was good and ready." He showed the thing to Buddy. He was still a little confused as to why I wasn't attacking the creature that had invaded our house until I brought it close enough for him to smell, although he said Buddy's behavior had frightened him beyond words. In the end, no harm, no foul. Number 2. The Disturbance Downstairs. Nearly all pets get nervous for no apparent reason every now and then, but when they seem to see something that you don't, what can you do but get chills all up and down your spine? Redditor Ghost Nightgown posted her experience with her yappy terrier mix on Reddit, explaining that her dog might not like other dogs, but he loves people. He might bark with excitement when the doorbell rings, but he is all wags and spinning when they get in the house. She writes, "I often joke that burglars would be welcome, as long as they don't bring their dog or ring the bell." The Redditor goes on to explain that while she was up one night, binging on Netflix, her faithful companion was sound asleep by her side. I had my bedroom door shut to keep my cats out. My dog popped his head up, stared at my bedroom door with his ears pinned back, and started in with a super low growl. He He was incredibly intense and shaking slightly. While this might not seem all that out of the ordinary, the writer said she'd never heard this growl before. It was new and unsettling. After a few minutes, I was completely freaked out and hiding in my bathroom, she writes. At no point did he look away from the door, and he just kept that low growl going. She went downstairs to investigate. What did she find? Nothing at all. I don't know why the dog freaked out, she writes, but he settled right back down and went to sleep. I, on the other hand, fell asleep around dawn. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. Also, I recently created a subreddit where you can submit videos and stories for future lists. It's r/chillsnarrator, and the link is in the description below. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. If English isn't the only language you speak and you're interested in getting a shout out, click more, then add translations. By translating the video, not only will more people be able to watch it, but a link to your channel will be added in the description. Number 1. The Ghost. YouTuber Ghost Clips 1 uploaded footage in 2010 of a ghost allegedly going after a man and his dog on video. About 6 weeks prior to the footage that you are about to see, I captured what appears to be a spirit in my house on video, the uploader writes.
Baby. Hey, what's the matter, girl? Come here. What's the matter? Are you okay? Come here. Come on up.
I have been ghost hunting with my video camera every chance that I get. On January 9th, 2008, I returned home from work to find one of my dogs seemingly disturbed and was hiding under the bed. The footage begins with the dog's owner looking for him throughout the house. As mentioned, he finds Phoebe, the dog, under one of the beds hiding. The owner lures Phoebe out with a treat after 45 minutes for about 10 seconds, after which the scared dog returns to her safe space. 10 minutes later, I still could not get her to come out from under the bed, the uploader writes. What happened next is truly terrifying.
What is that?
The thing that seems to be bothering Phoebe is heard, a bang coming from the attic. The owner goes to investigate. He lifts the hatch and, after searching for the culprit to no avail, the owner heads back downstairs, only to hear another loud bang. He returns to the attic to look around. And an aluminum can suddenly falls over. The owner shoots off downstairs. The lights turn off of their own accord, and the can moves again. The camera is jostled to the side. The lights turn on and off several times. The viewer can assume that the owner and his dogs are long gone at this point. Needless to say, it took me about a week to work up the courage to retrieve my camera. The uploader confirms this assumption. Courage indeed. I wouldn't set foot back in that attic. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!